Hello, them.
Oh, that's not the point, though, is it? I mean, they could leave exposed cable line about for years and no one touch it, but that don't stop it being a safety hazard, do it?
I think Tom's right there, Arthur. It is a possible safety hazard. And I think that gives us point 3.
I think it's more than a possible safety hazard.
Oh, that'll do.
What's he put?
Well, I think we're entitled to have things set down the way we discuss it.
I think that's a good point, Bob. I think we can lose the possible, Annie. I'll see you get a bit extra on your Christmas rise, eh?
No skin off my nose.
But looking at that now, have we completed the point?
Well, what way?
Well, we've pinpointed the fault, but can we do any better?
Carry it under the grid.
Good. How'd you like that set out, Bob?
Well, as inlet pipe 4C is a safety hazard, we suggest it be... well, sunk onto the grid.
Good. Yes. Now then, can we move on then?
Well, I've got another point. I mean, that valve, valve 6, that's got to be a menace too.
6. In what way?
Well, jutting out like that.
What are you talking about? That'll never be a safety hazard. Only a bloody idiot would catch himself on that.
Well, there wouldn't be no problem moving it in.
Moving it any further with all them pipes, it'd be impossible to get at, to service properly.
Yeah, Pat's right there. We don't want it to end up like some of the boats have worked, where you have to practically hang by your toes to service anything.
Them inlet valves are bad enough to service at the best of times.
Oh, come off it, Pat. We've all changed the washer on the tap at home.
Oh, don't forget you'll have men crossing that area all the time.
And extra servicing means higher production costs. We're always being told that.
That's it, isn't it? When money's involved, safety goes out the window.
No, Bob, be fair. That valve's only, what, about 30 inches out.
Look, as we're obviously divided on this, can we agree to differ? We're a bit pressed for time, and I don't think we're going to get on anywhere going on about it.
Yeah, there's just a small point here.
Yes, Jack.
Well, I noticed they've marked it down here for flow control.
Flow control?
Ah. Well, I didn't know they was using that anymore.
Didn't know they was using it in the first place. What's the problem?
Well, you're just ignorant, Bill Oliver, let's face it.
No, it's just that pressure control is easier and more accurate, that's all.
Well, I'll take your word for that, Jack. What should we put?
Wow.
Well, you could,
They might have some reason for preferring flow control.
I suppose it's always possible that they could have made a mistake, eh?
Aye, there is that.
Oh, well, let's be tactful, shall we, Harry? Oh, any suggestions?
Well, is there...
You could say...
Tom?
Is there any reason for preferring flow control to the easier and more accurate pressure control?
I think that'll do very well. Thank you, Tom. Is there anything you've noticed yourself on the design?
Have they said what sorts of operating instructions they're issuing?
Instructions?
He's got a good point there, Bill.
he has.
Well, I've not been shown anything. It's not something they'll do before the machine's made. Same as usual, I expect.
Some of the instructions I've seen are nearly unreadable. I think that's a good point we could make.
Well, I've seen some instructions I can't make head nor tail of.
Well, it's quite simple, Frankie. You just wait till the train moves out of the station.
Look, haven't we got to separate two things here? Instructions as they're laid down, and taking the trouble to understand what they mean.
So, what you're saying is, Bill, if I understand you correctly, is that the instructions they give us is all right, it's just that we are too thick. Is that it?
That's what you're saying, Paul.
I'm just saying that we've got to make a little effort now and then.
Look, wait a minute. Let's have Harry in on this. Harry, do you remember those so-called instructions they gave me to service the new gas burner they installed last year? Do you remember I came to you with it?
Oh, yes.
I couldn't make it out. I went along to Harry. I said, what's all this about? They're thinking that the natural mental superiority of my supervisor would have it sorted out in a jiffy.
Good old Harry.
Yes.
Well, part of the trouble on this one was that the instructions was written out in longhand.
But that's part of the point Tom was making. If they issue instructions in longhand, some people may not be able to make them out.
So all you're saying really is that instructions should be typed out, isn't that it?
Well, wait a minute. Harry, when you'd sorted out the handwriting, what did you do then, Harry?
Well, I'm afraid they've got you beaten on this one, Bill. We couldn't understand what they meant by, what was it, cross-igniter feed-in.
Well, it's obvious, isn't it?
Well, there was nothing marked on the machine, no diagrams even.
So you had to phone the company that installed it, right?
That's right.
Which was time-wasting and unnecessary if the instructions they'd given us had been complete in the first place,
So
right?
you see, Billy, it's not just a question of handwriting and us being stupid. Unless you're going to include Harry on your list of thickheads.
All right. Well, everybody knows Harry's as thick as two planks, but I see your point.
Well, what shall we have then?
I think I'd better do this one, Harry. Instructions should be simple, clear, typed, and have diagrams wherever necessary. All right? Well, that gives us 4 main suggestions for modifications.
Not many.
Well, this particular problem, Jim, doesn't call for a 5-page report. There'll be plenty of others in the future which we can really get our teeth into with any luck. Well, is there anything left? Any other suggestions? Anything to add to these suggestions? Everyone satisfied then?
You didn't mention them inlet valves.
Well, let's see what we've decided, shall we? I think it was Jim brought up our first point.
Vibration switch.
Sorry, Arthur.
What about them vibration trip switches? They changing them?
Well, what does it show on the design?
Just says, vibration trip switch.
Well, the switches on the old compressors become faulty after a while, deteriorated like.
Yeah, that's true. They got to the point where they was cutting out either too early or too late.
I think you got a good point there, Arthur.
Yeah, unreliable they were.
Yeah, Arthur's quite right there, Bill. Them old switches were shocking. Mind you, I don't know if they're using that sort anymore, Arthur.
Are the trip switches still giving trouble, Arthur?
Well, not since they was changed. I was just wondering if they was going back to the old design for the new installations.
Oh.
Well, let's just make a note then, shall we? A reminder. Harry. We assume improved vibration trip switches will be used. All right, Alice?
That'll do. That'll do.
Well, is that everything now?
Well, I can't think of anything more.
Well, let's have a look at what we've got, shall we? Now, we started off by asking ourselves whether this meeting was worthwhile. Most of us thought it was. We thought it would benefit us as well as management if we made the new compressor as efficient as possible. Now, let's see. I think it was Jim that brought up the first point. Well, what we've done there really is to point out the manning consequences of the new instrument layout. It's not quite a modification, but it is an important point. Then we had Pat's point about realigning C1 valve for ease of maintenance. That'll save a lot of trouble later, too. And Bob came up with number 3, the trip hazard on number 4 inlet pipe. This, again, is something easy to change now with lasting benefits. Then Bob brought up another point about the positioning of valve 6. It's a valid point, Bob, but one on which we agreed to disagree, as moving the valve would have made it difficult to service. Well, we can't solve every problem, can we? Now, where were we? Oh, yes. Jack asked, is there any reason for preferring flow control to pressure control? Well, there may be a very good reason, but let's find out, shall we? Then Tom, yes, I think it was Tom, suggested that operating instructions be clearly laid out. I gave him my immediate support there. And finally, Arthur suggested we make sure they install the improved vibration trip switches. Well, as you can see, we've not designed another QE2. But I'm sure our suggestions will save a lot of bother and unnecessary alterations later on. Is everyone satisfied? Well, if there's nothing else, thanks for coming.
What about them inlet valves, then?
Oh, we've done those. That's right, Frankie. Look, can you spare me a minute when the others have gone and we'll talk about them, eh?
Yeah, all right.
Yeah. All right, yeah, thanks about
Put it in your leg.
Cheerio, Bill. Wait a minute. Cheerio, honey. I'll see you in a minute, yeah. Now, Frankie, that was a very good point you brought up about this vibration trip switches. Now, why don't we put it out? Well, I'll put it up for one reason. Yeah, I know it's very important. Put it upstairs. Well, that's what we explained to you.